NFL star Plaxico Burress shot himself in the leg and then tried to cover it up by going to a celebrity-friendly hospital. I'll have the very latest on this and other outrageous cases of celebrities getting special treatment. But first, we are back looking at crime in America through a post-racial lens, focusing on two horrific recent murders. First, the murder of Arkansas anchorwoman Ann Presley, and second, the tragic triple homicide of Jennifer Hudson's family members. Is race a factor when it comes to how we react to these cases? Back with me, my fabulous panel: Mark Sawyer, director of the Center for the Study of Race and Ethnicity at UCLA; Judge Jeanine Pirro, former DA and host of the Judge Jeanine Pirro Show; and Morris O'Kelly, author of the nationally syndicated online column, The Mo Kelly Report. And let me say that I am speaking and analyzing this case and discussing with you as a person of color myself, a woman of color. I'm Puerto Rican. I know what it's like to be a minority. So we are all approaching this issue through our own glasses, as it were. And as far as I'm concerned, I believe that bigotry and prejudice isn't about one particular race attacking another particular race. It is a very primitive mindset that we as a human race need to evolve beyond. The phone line's lighting up. Erica in Alabama, your thought or question, ma'am?
Yes. My question is, do you honestly think, let's take O.J. Simpson, for instance.
Hello?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes.
Let's take O.J. Simpson, for example. Do you honestly think if Nicole Brown Simpson had not been white, would O.J. Simpson's trial have been on TV the way that it was every day for months? I mean, it was ridiculous. I don't think there's any African-American woman that has been killed that has gotten that type of treatment.
Well, let's talk about that, Jeanine Pirro. The larger issue, a very valid one, because the O.J. case is a vortex that we could get sucked into.
Could go on.
But the larger issue is, there is something actually called the missing white woman syndrome, where focus on pretty white women in glamorous, exotic locales gets a lot of coverage. Do you feel that that's a fair criticism?
Well, I think that the O.J. case in particular was on television because if you'll recall, Jane, in 1994 when that crime happened and the trial, I believe, started in 1995, there were laws being passed in many states which allowed for the televising of criminal cases. Now, O.J. Simpson was big enough that I don't know that it mattered what the race of the victim was, but I think that there is some legitimacy, that it's really more in terms of the caller's question, but I think it's more about celebrity. I mean, Jennifer Hudson's a celebrity. O.J. Simpson's a celebrity. This is really about issues more than race.
What do you think?
Well, if you're going to mention O.J. Simpson, you have to look at it in terms of there is still an anger against O.J. Simpson now that is unprecedented. Why is he more of a social pariah in 2008 than Robert Blake, when ostensibly both of them are equally guilty as the day is long? But there's still more concern with O.J. Simpson. Why is that?
Well, I'll tell you why it is, because O.J. Simpson was so guilty it wasn't funny. There was more
and Robert Blake
DNA.
Was not?
Wait a minute. We had DNA. We had footprints. We had everything in this case.
Both men were acquitted of the criminal charges,
and
both men were
found
found responsible in the civil cases.
But there is
evidence
in some cases that is overwhelming, and that was the case with O.J., and that's the problem. It had to do with the evidence and not the race.
But that's a failure of the prosecution.
I think also in the Robert Blake case, for better or for worse, the victim was far less sympathetic. She was a woman who had been described as a grifter and who had been involved in various unsavory activities.
Life is equally valuable, is it not?
Absolutely. I'm not saying I feel that way. I'm saying that that's part of the explanation for the coverage that some people have offered. Clara from South Carolina, your thought or question, ma'am?
Yes, I do not believe that this is racially motivated. I've been a victim. I've been listening to some of this war against women. I believe our problem is people don't take it serious. The lawyers, law enforcement. I mean, I've tried everything I can to bring it forth within my own state, and I've seen things that really shocks my conscience. We all have to realize violence is violence, and when you go to law enforcement, they need to assert the truth, find the truth, and let's get the situation resolved.
I could not agree with you more. Mark Sawyer, in this case, I think perhaps the biggest outrage is that, and I'm talking about the Ann Presley murder, the man who was charged with that is also a suspect in a rape that occurred back in April, and it took him 7 months to get the DNA back. on that first case. And a lot of people, women, feel, hey, that's a crime against women. In other words, that the segment of the population, the demographic that's really suffering here isn't one particular race, it's a gender, and that's women.
Yeah, 1 in 4 women in America are victims of sexual assault. It's a huge problem, and it's one that we don't talk about. And in fact, one of the things that's true is that most women are victimized by people they know. Most violent crime is committed by someone they know. So the rapist is as much likely to be someone that's sitting in the cubicle next to you as it is a stranger, like the case in Arkansas. And so we have to do something about it. And in some ways, these kinds of cases where the details are very salacious and extraordinarily violent hide the really silent, deadly thing that's going on with 1 in 4 women being victimized in this way.
And law enforcement's failure, Jane, to prioritize and to move along the DNA of these rape kits is really a problem, because many of these rapists are career criminals, they're serial rapists, and if we were able to identify them quicker, then there would be fewer victims down the road. And make no mistake, the DNA database, CODIS, that we have, which only recently has been enacted, is what allows us to connect these rapes together, which is what happened in Ann Presley's case.
Yeah,
there was a teacher raped by the same person, the same DNA.
Allegedly.
DNA.
Yeah,
Allegedly.
and let's face it, that woman was living for 7 months, not knowing, waiting, trying to find out who did this to her, and that person, the man who is accused of it, lived in the same small town outside Little Rock. It's awful. Alan in Florida, your thought or question, sir?
Well, I just have a comment. This conversation and the debate between whether race or celebrity is the bigger issue. I think without question, in comparing O.J. Simpson and Robert Blake, it's all about celebrity. Robert Blake was an actor and a celebrity, but let's face it, as a famous football player and an actor, O.J. Simpson was 1,000,000 times more famous and well-known. That's why the outcry with his case received a lot more attention than Robert Blake.
Well, I would just say this as we wrap up. Thank you so much for that. I would like to say, and our panel is absolutely fabulous. I hope you come back. We need to continue this dialogue. We need to really look at a new way of dealing with crime. Let's get to the underlying causes. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about prevention. Let's talk about peaceful conflict resolution for kids in the schools. That's what we need to be talking about. Morris, Mark, Judge Pirro, thank you. Up next, Tom Arnold joins me for a brutally honest discussion of his childhood trauma as a victim of sexual abuse and how it shaped his role in his shocking new movie, Gardens of the Night.